Hello everyone, welcome to or welcome back to Station 07.1 Podfix. I'm your host, Rin, and this is the continuation of You're on Your Own Kid by CastleintheAir1989. This is Chapter 6, I See the Great Escape. The fic link is in the description and there are no warnings for this chapter. 4 missed calls, 2 new voicemails, 11 unread messages. Hizashi. I'm heading home now. I'm picking up fresh bok choy for the stir fry tonight. You're not home yet. Do you want me to wait on dinner? Show you there? Where are you? I thought you were supposed to be home an hour ago. Show, is everything okay? You're not usually so late. Did you pick up a patrol and forget to tell me? Show, please pick up your phone. I've called you several times now. Where are you? I'm starting to get worried about you. Call me when you get this. I swear if you don't call me back in the next 10 minutes, I'm grabbing Nomori and Tensei and I'm looking for you. Shota paced outside Midoriya's apartment building, having dropped the boy off, not wanting to wait until he got home to make this call. Ignoring the messages piled up on his phone, he dialed Nezu's number. He barely waited for the principal to pick up before spitting out, I want him arrested, now. Azawa! How nice of you to fill me in. I'm sure it must be important, considering the late hour. Nezu pointedly reminding him. I appreciate your directness, but surely realize that even I need to be filled in on what's going on from time to time. Contrary to rumors, I'm not actually watching you all the time. Okumura, he demanded, his tone dripping with disgust. I want him gone immediately. Have you concluded your investigation? Shota bit back a sigh. No. Then you know what my answer is. You can't compromise your cover just yet. I don't want him around my students anymore. Shota spat. The thought of that man lurking throughout the school, terrorizing the kids there, made his blood boil. He gripped his phone tighter, glaring at the concrete as if it had personally offended him. Let me remind you that if you tip your hand now, you won't be able to finish investigating the other teachers. I'm sure you don't want to run the risk of letting a corrupt teacher remain. Whatever this man did to upset you. At this, Shota made an indignant noise. I heard that, Azawa, and I'm sure you are completely justified in your frustration. But as I was saying, whatever this man did, I'm sure you don't want to let someone else terrible as him get away, just because you're angry. Shota reluctantly conceded that he had a point. Halting his pace, he stared out into the quickly darkening parking lot. Have you made any progress in finding the anonymous tipper? I believe I'm getting closer. The rustle of papers was heard on the other end of the phone. I have already eliminated several of the most likely possibilities. Good. If Nedz was able to find the tipster, and if he could convince them to testify, Shota would be able to conclude his investigation sooner. He'd never doubted Nezu's intellect or investigative skills, but he'd also never felt so dependent on them before. There's one more thing. Shota might as well tell Nedz everything. He'd be certain to find out eventually. I threatened him. Good for you. Shota swore as he heard the smile in his voice. I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to say that. Perhaps not, but I'm sure you had your reasons. Shota walked over to his car. I'll send you today's report once I get home. I know this is difficult for you, but I appreciate what you're doing all the same, Nedz reminded him. I don't enjoy getting in your way, but this must be done thoroughly. You're right. I can't and won't compromise my investigation, Shota conceded, sliding into his car. But just because I understand doesn't mean I like it. He hated letting Okumura walk free, however temporarily, after what he'd done. I dislike it as well, he agreed. I will let you know as soon as I find anything, he assured Shota as he hung up. Shota sighed, resting his head on the steering wheel. All he wanted to do was go home, rant to Hisashi about the day, and sleep. But he still had to put together his findings for the day and send it to Nezu. Hopefully the rat would be able to glean something useful from it. As he drove off, he sent one last glance back at Midoriya's apartment building. He hoped that kid would be okay. Shota stumbled through the door of his apartment, mentally exhausted from the conversations of the day. Where were you? Hisashi asked the instant he crossed the threshold. One look at Shota's face, and the question died on his lips. Is everything all right? He inquired more softly. Collapsing on the couch, Shota sent his husband a haggard look. Hisashi settled in beside him, draping his arm around him, his thumb rubbing gentle circles on his shoulder. Letting out a ragged sigh, Shota relaxed into his touch. Bad day? Hisashi watched him with concern. The absolute worst. Shota closed his eyes, leaning back into the sofa. Soap leapt up and took a seat beside him, curling into a furry ball against his leg. I'll heat up some food for you. He stood and walked to the kitchen, quickly returning with a steaming bowl of rice, vegetables, and meat. Taking the bowl and chopsticks from Hisashi, he dug in. After a few minutes, he spoke. You remember how we figured out Midoriya was quirkless yesterday? Yeah, he nodded, seeming to follow where Shota was going. Well, I was watching him in class today, and it explains so much. And it gets worse. He frowned. I found him locked in the janitor's closet when I was leaving the school. He was having a panic attack. I managed to calm him down, but he ran into one of the other teachers, who started screaming at him for causing trouble. Shota's hands tightened around his chopsticks, and he clenched his jaw before continuing. He hit him. Hard. Right in front of me. Like he didn't think anyone would care. Shota set his empty bowl and chopsticks on the coffee table in front of him, sighing as he ran a hand through his hair. Midori was a mess, apologizing as if it was his fault he got slapped in the face. It's no wonder he never talks and is so nervous all the time. He can't even trust the people around him to not hurt him. I had him come to my office and checked over his injuries. You should have seen him. He was terrified, thinking he'd be in trouble for all of it. Hisashi's lips were pressed in a thin, tight line. He laced his hand through Shota's, squeezing tightly, silently supportive. He was afraid of me, Shota said, voice rough. He cleared his throat. He really thought I was going to hurt him. He thought he deserved it. It's not your fault, Sho. I should have done something more, he insisted, reaching down to pet Soap. She purred, curling closer against him. You are doing something, Hisashi reminded. You can't change what happened, but you're making sure the little listener is safe. I can't watch him the entire day, he argued. I don't know how to keep him safe while those people are still there. Hisashi, he begged me not to tell anyone what happened so that man wouldn't retaliate against him. You'll do what you can. I know you won't let them get away with it. Hisashi wrapped his arms around him, and Shota buried his head in his shoulder. Savoring the moment, he breathed deeply. Raising his head, he spoke, his voice determined. If he ever touches him again, he'll have to answer to me. I don't care what Nezu says. Izuku sat cuddled on the couch with his mom, watching one of their favorite movies together, a bowl of popcorn nestled in between them. He'd somehow managed to convince her that his injuries yesterday weren't that big of a deal. The bruising looked pretty bad, but his lip had stopped bleeding. His wrist was an even bigger worry to her, but he'd assured her that it didn't hurt too much if he didn't move it, and that brace really helped. He wasn't sure if she bought his story about running into a door. Her eyes had lingered a bit too long on his wrist, glistening sadness, but to his relief, she didn't say anything. Sometimes he'd wondered if she suspected what was happening, but had come to the same conclusion he had, that speaking up was rarely, if ever, helpful. Which brought him back to what happened with Azawa-sensei. It seemed too good to be true. Did he really mean everything he said? That he didn't want Izuku to get hurt and that the other teachers were wrong for what they'd done? Not only did Izuku get away with criticizing the other teachers, but Ozawa-sensei had called them out too. He'd even apologized. No teacher had ever done that, especially not to him. But Ozawa-sensei had. He kept his word, and he hadn't hit him, hadn't yelled at him, hadn't sighed and shaken his head about how hopeless Izuku was, how he was never going to measure up to the rest of the students. He never once tried to make him feel lesser. Not once had he raised his hand or his voice. Sensei helped him, putting up with his crying and panicking that the other teachers despised. And he still didn't understand why. Not fully. A part of him waited for the other shoe to drop, for something, anything to go wrong. Mostly, though, he was relieved. It was as if an enormous weight had been lifted off his shoulders. He'd never told anyone what it was really like at school. A part of him was ashamed, as if he could have prevented it if he tried hard enough. As terrifying as it had been to talk to Ozawa-sensei about how he'd been mistreated by teachers and bullied by his peers, it was so nice to not be the only one who knew. For it not to be a secret from everyone anymore. Ozawa-sensei had reacted so well. He hadn't been annoyed with his crying or gotten impatient. He just sat and waited, listening to his rambles, never making him feel like an inconvenience. And once Izuku had finished spilling the big, ugly mess, Sensei had believed him. He believed him when no one had before. He believed him when everyone else had accused him of being an attention-seeking liar. It felt so good to be believed in. And that hadn't been all he'd done for him. His teacher's words from earlier still echoed in his head. Your lack of a quirk makes you no less valuable than anyone else. It was still hard to believe that Sensei had meant it. He couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at him and seen anything but his quirklessness. But Sensei had. His mom's voice broke through his thoughts. You're really quiet tonight, honey. Is everything all right? She bit her lip, watching him with worried eyes. Izuku realized that he'd been silent through almost the entire movie. Normally he and his mom would talk, pausing the conversation to watch their favorite scenes, but otherwise having lengthy discussions about how his mom's work was going or what Izuku had seen recently in the hero news. He'd been so lost in thought that he hadn't realized he was being quieter than normal. Everything's fine, Mom, he assured her. I was just thinking. About anything you want to share? She asked. I have a new homeroom teacher at school. He seems nice. Izuku mused. Oh, that's good, she smiled at him. I hope he's much better than your last one. She made a face. She shared his distaste for Okumura-sensei. At their last parent-teacher conference, he'd implied that Izuku wasn't smart enough to be in his class, and Izuku couldn't recall the last time he'd seen her so angry. He'd barely been able to talk her out of filing another complaint with the school. I think he will be, Izuku smiled back. Ozawa-sensei was more than just a better alternative to Okumura-sensei. He was a good teacher, and Izuku was starting to believe that he could trust him. It was a nice change. I'm glad to hear it. She put her arm around him, pulling him into a gentle hug. He hugged her back, melting into the embrace, but not mentioning how it was practically impossible for Izawa-sensei to not be better than his old homeroom teacher. When he was in Okumura-sensei's class, he was always afraid. He was less scared of Izawa-sensei. He hadn't hurt him when he had the chance, and he said he wouldn't hurt him. Izuku almost believed him. At least, he believed his teacher wouldn't hurt him for no reason. But if he messed up, could he really expect a teacher to keep his word? He surely hadn't meant it that way. Sensei couldn't have meant that he'd never hurt Izuku, especially when Izuku knew he was always messing up. Okumura-sensei hadn't needed an excuse for what he did. Izawa-sensei wouldn't be like that, Izuku reasoned. A small voice in his head chided that even Izawa-sensei had to have a limit. Izuku didn't expect him to put up with him forever. He'd just have to be careful and not give him a reason. Then everything would be fine. And that was chapter 6. Nezu's voice kills me every time I have to do it. It's so high-pitched, and yeah, I can go there, but it hurts my throat. I hope you guys enjoyed my suffering, and don't forget to tune in next time. This was Station 07.1 Podfix.